Can we have Marlene and Vic and Vance Ulrich come to the stage? Tonight, on behalf of Don Ulrich, we have with us his widow, Marlene Ulrich Dunavant, and his two sons, Vic and Vance. Welcome.
There was really so much material available to illustrate Don Ulrich that I decided it would be easier to create a short video to tell the story of Don Ulrich, class of 1959. Are you where you can see the? Okay, good. So with no further ado, we'll roll that tape.
Don Ulrich was with the Olympia High School class of 1959. He was a child prodigy in music growing up. He's said to have begun playing the violin at age 3. Don Ulrich went on to a stellar country music career under the name Don Rich. Don was a harmonizing, guitar-picking, fiddle-playing collaborator for Buck Owens and the Buckaroos, who dominated country music charts in the 1960s and into the 1970s with 21 #1 hits and 26 more in the top 10. Largely credited with creating the Bakersfield sound, the Buckaroos' popularity took off in 1963 with Act Naturally. The Beatles credited the Buckaroos as influencing their style. They also recorded Act Naturally as their own album cover. And all I gotta do is act naturally. Buck Owens and the Buckaroos toured the United States, Europe, and Japan, and released about 60 albums under the Capitol label. Maintaining good record sales meant performing on the road as much as 300 days a year at times. Buck was the big star, but his supporting cast was led by Don, who Buck often referred to as his long-lost brother. Buck and Don were telepathic. They thought alike, despite their different styles. Don Ulrich managed the musical arrangements for the Buckaroos, permitting Buck more ability to handle other aspects of his career, which also included radio station ownership and a trail of other business interests that continue today. The Buckaroos were a sensation. They were featured in their own syndicated television country music program. They had regular performances on other national television programs, including The Jimmy Dean Show, where the Buckaroos appeared 6 times. Though Don loved performing guitar, his earliest talents started with the fiddle or violin, on which he was classically trained. In the Country Music Academy's first 2 awards programs in 1967 and 68, the Buckaroos won Top Instrumental Group, also nominated in 1969, 70, 71, and 74. Having been nominated as Top Instrumentalist in 1969, Don Rich won that award in 1974. That top individual honor was bittersweet, being awarded posthumously. In 1969, the Buckaroos became the house band for the country comedy variety show Hee Haw. Don was the music director for the program that aired in syndication for 22 years. I'm on my way to San Antonio. A number of albums were released under the name Don Rich and the Buckaroos. But Don seemed happy not being the big star.
Would always say, Chief, she says, I'm kind of like the way things are right now, and I'm having fun the way they are, and I don't think I want to change things. And Buck kind of laughed about that. Don just really, at that point, just wanted to enjoy life. Could have been a star in his own right in terms of record contracts if he'd wanted to.
Don Ulrich was killed in a motorcycle crash in 1974 at age 32, leaving behind his wife Marlene, sons Vic and Vance, as well as Don's mother, Ann, in Tumwater. Don's death was a crippling blow to Buck Owens, who said the fun had just run out of music after Don died. Buck never missed an opportunity to recognize his old friend and collaborator, Don Ulrich. even in his own induction into the Country Music Academy's Hall of Fame in 1996. Buck was giving praise to Don.
I want to real quickly thank and remember the great Don Rich, above all and everybody.
It may be important enough to understand the significance of Don Ulrich in the world of country music. We also salute the youthful genius of this friend, classmate, and neighbor to many folks in the Olympia Tumwater area. Who was Don Ulrich, and what was he like from his earliest years? Don Ulrich, or Ulrich, was the adopted child of Bill and Ann Ulrich, who lived at 6th and Ferry on Tumwater Hill. They both enjoyed performing music and began teaching Donnie the fiddle, it is said, as early as 3 years old. They were very active, entering Donnie into talent contests and finding performance venues all through his youth. Don's dad, Bill, was a barber along Deschutes Way in Tumwater, near where Jim Brown grew up.
He asked me one day, my boy sings and he can play the violin, and we're looking for some places for him to perform. Could he come down to your club? So I made arrangements for him to come down to the Olympia YMCA, where I belong to the Wiseman's Club, and he performed for us. He sang a song and played his violin, and the song was called My Little Red Wagon. He made a special violin for Don, and it was smaller than a regular violin. I think he was probably maybe 6 or 7. It was excellent. We said, now that youngster really has talent.
Denny Murray remembers competing with Don in a talent contest.
Donnie was playing the guitar and singing, and he sang a song called Chocolate Ice Cream Cone. And I think, if I remember right, he closed the show, and he won the show. I remember talking to him that night. I remember talking a little bit about music, because we were both interested in music. A very nice young man.
Gretchen Christopher of the class of 1958 remembers Don.
He had a lot of presence, even at the age of probably 16 or 17.
Boyd Yeager lived a block away from Don growing up. They played cowboys and Indians and watched Western movies in the late 1940s.
I suppose I was 10, he was 9, so we were just kind of hanging out there in the backyard, and he says, I'd like to, be my blood brother, and I thought, wow. He says, what do we need to do here? He says, we just cut and we just do this, and I'm thinking, not me, but, I just kind of just silently didn't comment or go any further than that. But, to think about it today, that was a special, very special, thing. Don was probably one of the nicest people you could meet. He was really orientated to folks, that's paid attention to him. He was a gentleman in that regard. He stood tall, but he was a good friend.
Don played music in school and for a professional circuit outside of high school. Don had just turned 17 when he opened for Elvis Presley at Tacoma's Lincoln Bowl, and in 1958 he was playing regularly at Steve's Gay 90s restaurant in Tacoma, remembered by George Barner, class of 1959.
And I'd heard that Don was playing and singing up at Steve's Gay 90s, so I talked to a couple buddies of mine that going with me. We jumped in my pickup truck and drove up to Tacoma. And at the second intermission, I was hearing people talking about, hey, look, that Buck Owens is in the crowd. And so when they took that second break, I saw him get up out of the audience and walk up to the stage. And he stood up there and talked to Don on stage for 15, 20 minutes. They spent that whole entire break. He was talking back and forth with Don. Don pointed to his mom and dad and said, tell him to say hello. I guess he was telling Buck to go say hello to his folks because they were there. So it was fascinating for me to see. I didn't realize he was probably putting the arm on him to come perform with him.
Don started playing fiddle with Buck Owens in 1958, playing local venues. They were also featured weekly on a country music program on KTNT TV 13 called Bar K Jamboree. This is where Loretta Lynn made her television debut. But Tacoma wasn't long for Buck Owens, as he scored a number 24 hit on the charts, and Capitol Records was encouraging him to return to Bakersfield, where he played before his hitch in Tacoma. Ken Balsley, class of 1960, lived next door to the Ulriches through Don's high school years. He remembers Buck Owens.
And I must have been at his house that night for some reason, and Buck was trying to convince Don to join up with him. You know, and he told Don, you're going to go far if you join up with me. And the truth of the matter was, he did.
So Don stayed in Olympia while Buck went to Bakersfield. Don stayed to go to Centralia College in hopes of becoming a music teacher, while also tutoring and playing local dance venues, including at Cliquotto outside Chehalis. It was there that he met Marlene Schindler, a Loggers Jubilee Queen from Morton, also a student at Centralia College. After a year of college, Don couldn't stay away any longer. He joined Buck Owens at Bakersfield, where he signed on for $75 a week. Not long after, Don returned to Washington to marry Marlene, who then also worked in support of keeping the Buckaroos performing. And now we're full circle to the early days of the Buckaroos, earning their keep as a road band, but hitting it big in the record business with Act Naturally.
The movies are gonna make me a big star, 'cause I can play the part so well. Hope you'll come and see me in my movie. Then I know that you're gonna plainly see the biggest fool that's ever